Okay, this is a 4020 John Deere tractor. I believe it's from the late 60s. 1969, or I thought it was 67 maybe, but anyway, late 60s. Spent many an hour in there as a kid. It's a good tractor, nice and warm when it's cold and you're working outside. Lots of good times, mostly good times. Alright, back here, this is a plow. We have kind of a smaller plow. Some of them have more diggers in them. We just have the 3-1. But as you can see, they've been plowing recently, and they got some of the twines in that from when they were out feeding. But they're going to be removed soon. Okay, parked in the machine shed. Here's the old red seed drill that we used for a lot of years. And then there's a nicer one back there, another John Deere one. And what happens is when you're planting seed, whether it's hay seed or grain, whatever the case may be, you put your seed there in the back, and then it goes down in those little tubes. And then let me look on this front one up here. You can see there are small little discs that plow through the ground, and the seeds fall in through there. And then you drag what is called a harrow behind it, and that covers up the seeds. Alright, I'll probably get a better picture of this in the summer when we do hay. Again, I'm filming this in the spring before anything is grown, so this isn't ready to go by any means. By June it will be. But the hay is cut, and then it's picked up in there. The hay then goes down in through there over to the side, and then it is put into bales with twine, and it comes out right through there and then can be picked up. Also, I've mentioned dams before. Dams are these long poles with canvas or plastic. They can be blue or orange, and you spread those out in a ditch, and you can dam up the water so you can irrigate the crops. I'm going to hopefully have some pictures of that in a few months. Okay, this right here is a fertilizer or phosphate spreader. It's not part of the farms, they just rent it, and it is loaded with different fertilizers in there, and it can be dragged along behind the tractor and spread out over the field so the stuff will grow better. This is an old style hay rake. I don't think they use it much anymore. I think they have a different one now. But when your hay is wet and it needs to dry out, you can drag that along, and it flips the hay over so the sun can shine on it and the wind can get to it and dry it out. And then over here to the side, this is called a ditcher that helps clean out your ditches and forms them better. But over here are the irrigation tubes that will be used in the summertime. You put those inside the ditch after you've set a dam so the water builds up, and then you can make a vacuum with them with those rubber tubes on the end, and you create the vacuum. It sucks it out of the water, out of the ditch like a straw, and it spreads over your crops. Okay, this is what is called a disc. I used to do a lot of this when I was living on the farm. I would use the tractor that I showed you earlier, the 4020, and you would hook the disc up to that, and it has a hydraulic pump that you can see there, so you can lift it up when you're going around corners. But the wheels, the little metal wheels that you see here, are called the discs. Their job as you drag it along is to break up the big chunks of dirt and make them smaller so you can plant your crop. And then behind the disc, I'll show you a picture of this in a moment, is something called a harrow that helps smooth out the ground as well. I don't have a picture of that yet, but it does go back there. This piece of machinery right here is called a harrow. When I took a picture of the disc, I think it was yesterday when I was out filming, I mentioned to you how you drag behind another tool called a harrow to smooth things out. It also has some really sharp teeth on it. I don't know if you can see those very well, if I can zoom in a little bit. But those teeth also help break up any clods or big pieces of dirt. Also in the pasture, when it gets too full of manure, you can go along and drag that over and it breaks it up and aerates things out. It's like a big aerator of your hay field as well in the springtime. You drag that around and it opens things up so they'll start to grow. Okay, over here is a relatively new addition to our farm. It's only been here about 5 or 6 years. Is this big white Quonset building that my brother purchased from a neighbor that didn't need it anymore. It's a great handy thing that we can use to store things like the hay swather that is in there. This summer I'm hoping to get pictures of the swather being used to cut hay so you guys can see how that is done. This land area right in here where the Quonset sits used to be an area where we stacked hay. But now we've turned it into a shed. The shed does face the north because most of our storms come from the south and the west here, and so this helps protect them and keep them out of the storm. There are usually a lot more items in there, but some of them are being used for the spring planting. Okay, this fun item right here, some of you would love this item. This is called a manure spreader. In the fall, when it's time to spread the manure out on the fields after everything's dried out, you load with a loader all the manure into this spreader, and then what happens is it's all hooked up to the tractor with that PTO bar right there, powered by the tractor. It spins everything, and looks like we got a few items in here already. But those wheels back there, those things that have the baler twine on them, spin around, and then those little bars move very slowly, and they move the pile of manure back towards the back, and it spreads it all over the field. I've been tempted before, when I was driving down the roadway, if I saw someone that I wanted to trick, I wanted to turn it on and spray it on them, but I never quite did that. This is known as our hay yard. When the hay is cut and dried and then baled in the summertime, it is stacked and loaded up here in the hay yard. As you can see here, some of the top bales are a little bit nastier looking. That's because they do get covered with snow, and then the water will melt, and sometimes it gets a little musty at top, but the cows will still eat it. You have to have this totally fenced in to protect it from the cows, or they will come in and really chomp down on it. That orange machinery over there is quite an interesting item. When I was a small kid, and up until I was about 10, we used to use that to load hay. You would put that alongside of that old truck that I showed you, and the hay would go up that little system right there, and then you would hand stack every bale. I think that's one of the reasons why my dad's back is giving out on him. He worked extremely hard growing up and as an adult on our farm, and he did a ton of work. Alright, I'm on the north side, on the north side of the hay yard. We've got some old machinery stacked down in here that we don't use anymore. This was our old corn chopper. The last time we raised corn was in 1990, and the last time we actually harvested it ourselves was 1985, so this corn chopper has been out of commission for over 25 years. It was pretty cool to watch when we used to chop corn. You would drag it behind the machine, or the tractor. It would chop off the corn, grind it up, and then it would spit it out into the truck. And I would help do that sometimes. When I was little, I used to like to watch the corn being chopped while I was in the tractor. This machine right here is just known as a hay wagon. You hook it on to the tractor, you go along and pick up the bales, it stacks them, I believe it's 56 at a time, and then they can be stacked in the hay yard like I showed you just a moment ago. We've been using one of these since the mid-90s.